Tonight, history pauses as the world mourns the loss of one of the most beloved voices of faith in all time.
Pope Francis, the first Latin America pontiff, has died, a shepherd of mercy and a champion of the poor is gone. This is RBS Evening News. Go.
Good evening and welcome to this special edition of RBS Evening News. I'm Alexander Carlson.
And I'm
Tonight, the
Oski
world
Weldon. Tonight, the world pauses in grief as the Roman Catholic Church mourns the death of its spiritual leader. Pope Francis has died.
the 88-year-old pontiff has passed away peacefully this morning at 7:35 a.m. Vatican time after weeks of declining health. This announcement was made official at 9:35 a.m. through a video statement by Cardinal Kevin Farrell, broadcasted on Vatican television.
Pope Francis, born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires, Argentina, made history as the first Latin American pope, the first Jesuit, and the first non-European head of a Catholic Church in over 8,000 years.
His final public appearance was just yesterday, Easter Sunday, as he presided over a Mass at St. Peter's Basilica and delivered his final Urbi et Orbi blessing. Earlier that day, he also held what would be his final diplomatic meeting, this one with the US Vice President J.D. Vance.
Francis became Pope in 2013, following the historic resignation of Pope Benedict XVI. He led with a style defined by humility and compassion, rejecting the trappings of papal luxury and bring renewed focus to the Church's mission to serve the poor and the marginalized.
His legacy includes bold reforms in the church, efforts to open dialogue with the LGBTQIA+ community, support for climate action, and stronger accountability in church governance. He was a people's pope, beloved not only by Catholics, but by millions across faiths and nations.
In the Philippines, his impact was deeply felt. During his 2015 visit themed Mercy and Compassion, Pope Francis stood alongside the Filipino people in the wake of Super Typhoon Yolanda.
Alright, moving forward with this news, we will continue the coverage of this, the death of Pope Francis. Later, let's bring the news here and locally. We'll shift from the death of the Pope to bring you RBS News' continuing coverage of the Semana Santa. As earlier, surge in traffic in major Metro Manila thoroughfares has returned once again, accompanying those who had returned after the Semana Santa. Southbound traffic has been apparent in the North Luzon Expressway, whilst the usual rush hour traffic had returned at EDSA following the resuming of work. The management of the Mass Rail Transit Line 3 has announced that they will expand the number of cars from 3 to 4, hoping to add the capacity to the system. An estimate of 1,100 passengers is said to fit in a 4-car train, though these are only to be deployed for peak hours. The amount of sets that is 4-car our trains are only 3 sets, as contrast to the 16 free car train sets. But this will help alleviate Manila's surging traffic congestion and passenger influx towards the return of many of our countrymen during our Semana Santa.
Meanwhile, the Philippine National Police on Monday said it recorded 64 drowning cases during this year observance of the Holy Week. In a statement, the PNP said the 64 cases were a 49% increase from 43 drowning cases in 2024 during the same period. Many Filipinos typically spend their Holy Week or Semana Santa break in provinces and beaches amid the scorching weather brought by the hot, dry season. The PNP noted that a total of 120 incidents were monitored across the country during the Holy Week, a 43% increase from last year's 84 incidents. It said the rise was largely driven by a significant increase in fire and drowning incidents. On a positive note, vehicular accidents decreased from 17 last year, an 80% reduction that reflects improved traffic enforcement and road safety campaigns, the PNP added. Despite that there were incidents, the PNP will still consider this year's Semana Santa break as generally peaceful. It said there were no major untoward incidents disrupting the week-long religious tradition. This success is attributed to the coordinating efforts of law enforcement agencies, LGUs, and the cooperation of the public. It's said. Moving on.
Well, back at the coverage of the death of Pope Francis. Tonight, Vatican enters Sede Vacante, the traditional period of mourning and papal begging. The fisherman's ring, a symbol of papal authority, will be ceremonially destroyed and papal apartments sealed.
Pope Francis will lie in the state at St. Peter's Basilica where mourners will be able to pay their final respects. A required mass will follow in the coming days, with road leaders and religious speakers expected to attend.
Attention now turns to the College of Cardinals, who will gather in conclave to elect the new pope. Cardinals under the age of 80 are eligible to vote. The selection process will take 2 to 3 weeks.
Among those widely considered as frontrunners, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle of the Philippines, Cardinal Pietro Parolin of Italy, Cardinal Angelo Scola, Cardinal Peter Turkson of Ghana, and Cardinal Peter Erdo of Hungary.
World leaders are sending their tributes. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. expressed a deep sorrow, calling Pope Francis a beacon of hope, peace, and healing. US President Joe Biden, the second Catholic president, said Francis was a champion of the poor and a moral force on the world stage.
The United Nations also praised Pope Francis for his advocacy on peace, climate justice, and interfaith cooperation. Here in the Philippines, memorial masses are already underway. At Manila Cathedral, the bells rang 88 times, honoring each year of his life.
All right, that ran for 16 minutes. For many Filipinos, Pope Francis will be remembered as a shepherd who walked us in our time of need, a father of figure of warmth, humility, and conviction.
Tonight, we invite you to join us in the moments of silence for the man who reshaped the papacy with a message of mercy, hope, and love.
All right. Well, this has been a special edition of the RBS News.
Yeah, we will continue to bring you coverage of the life death, and legacy of Pope Francis, along with the updates of the preparations for his funeral and the papal conclave ahead.
The coverage continues later on here on RBS, so keep it right here. You can catch on the updates and the replays of RBS Evening News. You can visit us on still tune in RBS and on RBSN. You can also log on to rbsnews.com. For now, we thank you for joining us on this solemn night, a historic day indeed for the world and for humanity with the largest religion on earth. I'm Alexandra Carlson.
And I'm Oski Walden, Philippines. Thank you and good night. Mabuhay. Mabuhay.
In times when we don't know, let this be our prayer. When we lose our way, lead us to a place, guide us with your grace, to a place where we'll be safe.
Luce che tu dai,
I pray we'll find your
crede resterà,
and hold it in our heart.
ricordarci
Now
che
is dubstep
Stars go
propaganda na
out
ng RBS.
each night.
Oh, wow.
I
Wow.
I think members of RTMA, siguro naman madaming
la preghiera,
Let this be our
quanta fede c'è.
shadows fill
Lead us to a place,
guide us with your grace. Give us faith so we'll be safe. us where we go and help us to be wise in
Good
times when
evening.
we don't know.
Over 1 billion people has lost its leader,
Let's be
a
on
man of faith, a
our
man of
way.
reason, a face of reform and progress within the church, the Holy Church, the Roman Catholic Church.
Lead us to a
Yeah,
This is an RBS News special
guide us
coverage of
with your grace to a
Pope
place where
Francis.
we'll be safe. I pray you'll be alright and watch us where we go and help us to be
go.
wise in times when we
Welcome back
don't know.
to the continuing coverage of the death of Pope Francis.
Let us be
I'm Alexander
on
Carlson.
And I'm Oski Walden. Tonight's headlines for today as we covering the coverage of Pope Francis' death and the situation at the Rome, Italy. So, yes, a source from CNN, you have a live updates on the death of Pope Francis. So, as of which we have a dying that we could make it happen for all the people that we could expected one time.
pray you'll find your way and hold you in
The Vatican said. So,
Yeah. Aside from the preparations for the morning, as well as on the laying of the dead, which is the body of Pope Francis, a lot on the discussion right now immediately is not just about the Pope, but who will be the next Pope. Succession talks are already in, as we reported earlier, that the papal conclave, the conference uh, cardinals will hold a vote on who will be the next pope of the 1 billion strong Catholic Church. There have already been talks on who will succeed him, especially most who are in the favorable circle of Pope Francis, Cardinal Tagle, which is why we note now is the Philippines' top cardinal here. He's been a figure of progressive ideas here in the Philippines. not just in the Philippines, but also in the whole Catholic Church. So there's a clear front runner there for progressive Catholics there who will advocate for co- uh, progressive policies within the Catholic Church, which during the time of Pope Francis has been very much in a shift towards openness from the closedness. They try to be more appealing with minorities, especially with the LGBTs, with the minorities, colonials, many the Catholic Church has been trying to have a sort of rebrand during the time of Francis. So there are the clear candidates for continuing that legacy of Francis of reforms. But there has been some airing of uh, airing of contenders for the conservative sides. There are still many candidates there who are more conservative and more likely to win over conservative. It's clear to certain how these cardinals vote. It is still a matter of time before we have a grasp on their conscience. And he said this is a long process. This is 2 to 3 weeks of everything, burning papers, cleaning papers, white smoke, black smoke. This is a long process, a very delicate process, considering this is a very solemn uh, ceremony. Aside from the death, there comes succession, and there is still be a change of baton. But
Yeah.
while
So
the leader is while the leader is still vacant, there is a acting head of the Vatican until someone is elected, which is Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the the cardinal that announced his death on television and on Vatican's media. He was a Dublin-born cleric who became naturalized American citizen after spending many years ministering in the U.S. Farrell, who was a former bishop of Dallas, has holds the position of Camerlengo or Chamberlain, which is the acting head of the Vatican in the period between the death or resignation of a pope and the next Catholic leader. Farrell is currently 77 years old, who holds an MBA degree from the University of Notre Dame in Indiana. He is the highest ranking U.S. bishop in the church's central administration and is known for being a strong decision maker and organizer. He has advantage of being a fluent speaker of English and Spanish, two of the most widely spoken uh, languages. Excuse me. He is also known to
yeah,
speak Italian and Irish Gaelic. So he has a lot of expertise, especially in business administration, which is very novel for Catholic beliefs, should I say. Farrell's expertise caught the attention of Pope Francis, who made him one of his trusted collaborators. In 2016, Francis appointed him to be the leader of the Vatican's family life, later making him cardinal, and then 3 years later, choosing him for the most important and sensitive position of Camerlengo. Thank you.
yeah. So
What are your thoughts on this, Husky? No, so you're seeing this is very solid sale. So what's your feedback regarding this? Your reaction?
yeah, my my counter is I watched the Pope visit in 2015, which is a 5 day historic event. Since I was in a first year of a junior high school in my institution in the school, where I watched the witness the updates on Pope's visit to the Philippines, and I know that we could make it a word mercy and compassion that you could expect on how can we proceed to we help our goal and let me how can we definitely are sustained, and this is what I have something that I can do this like, and this is where you can find, and this is the last time is the singing of the Lord of His love during the encounter with the youth at the UST, also the encounter at the mass at the cathedral, and the high mass at the Quirino grandstand, which is the feast of Senior Santo Niño. Diba?
All right. So, I for myself, I'm still at a young age, but at that time, so I haven't watched the coverage of the 2015 visit. But looking back to it, seeing all news reports, it is very much Pope visited during the time when the country is reeling through a disaster. The super typhoon Yolanda is still one of the most destructive typhoons in the history of the nation. So Pope Francis visiting there after, so it gives something of a hope for people, seeing that the leader of the predominantly biggest faith in the entire nation, seeing them offering prayers, giving them a space that I'm here. I'm here giving you message, giving you a hope that everything's gonna be okay. So it's really looking back on that, it's very much soothing. I for one, I'm not even a Catholic. I'm former INC. I'm atheist, but
Yeah.
giving that before, it's very much a very solemn occasion. It's a very heartwarming one. Even now when I first discovered that Pope was there, I was shocked. I don't expect this one. Expect this since last month. Still so novel, finding out Pope is dead. It's the most progressive Pope. He has been an understanding Pope. He's been tolerant, especially for us in the LGBTQIA plus community. How he uh how he resonate with them, even though it is in his words still a sin. He is willing to have some space that you're still welcome here. You're still open. You can still be here, even though it is a sin. We will not use you. We will not alienate you. You're fine here. This is a place of love. And to mention, as you have mentioned mercy and compassion. That has been the main mantra of the Pope when he visited in 2015, and it is still his policy until the day he died. Mercy and compassion, that has been the building blocks of his papacy. It has been his foundation. It has been his rules. It has been his conviction from the day he started, the day he became pope. Now, after he died, it never changed. It was still mercy and compassion. And I want to commend
Yeah.
the Pope on that. I want to, I highly respect the Pope for that. He's been the most progressive Pope the Catholic Church has ever seen.
Yeah. So I remember that during the pandemic, there are no people outside the room in Pope Center to call on and what's happening on the world, and also the remembrance of the 2023 where Pope Francis visited to Ukraine to call in the help, and especially last year when you can stopping the ceasefire in the Gaza and Israel battle. Could
He's
imagine that prayer
really,
is being important.
he's really a
Yeah,
humanitarian. You know, this is the value of life, and he really prioritized it during his papacy. No, so uh, you especially during the climate, since the world revolves, how the world acts and how's the world today. He is vocally uh for climate, advocating for climate change. No, how he
especially sa
advocated
Laudato
to
Si.
reforms. Yeah. So reading that, he was very much an advocate for all people. That testifies to his commitment as the head of the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's been a great legacy. It is an impactful legacy, and we will never forget his contributions to the world.
Okay,
Should
we
we take a
can we
short
can
break now?
uh,
Yeah,
we'll take a break now in a moment.
yeah. So, uh, you're still watching the special coverage of the death of Pope Francis. Stay with us. You're watching RBS News.
Keep it here, right?
Bills? Easy. For God so loved the world, He gave us His only
Too
Son,
big, too big, too big.
Jesus Christ our
Yeah.
Savior,
Ah,
His most precious one.
He has sent us his message of love and sends those who heed to bring the message to everyone in a voice loud and clear. Let us tell the world of his love.
admin. Bigyan niyo ako admin. Ng palag.
Okay,
Wow.
silent na, silent. Check sa GC.
God so loved the world, He gave us His only Son, Jesus Christ, our Savior, His most precious
Welcome back
one.
to this continuing coverage of the death of Pope Francis, Catholics' most leading pope, the progressive pope. Moving forward to world news, world leaders offer their condolences and remember the iconic pope. Former President Joe Biden mourned the loss of Pope Francis in a statement, calling the late pontiff the people's pope, a light of faith, hope, and love. It is said, quote, it is with great sadness that Jill and I learned of the passing of His Holiness, Pope Francis. He was unlike any who came before him. Biden said Pope Francis will be remembered as one of the most consequential leaders of our time, and I'm better for having known him. Biden was the second Catholic to serve as US president and praised Pope Francis for his work to help the marginalized on issues, pursuing peace and combating climate change. He said, quote, a statement, for decades, he served the most vulnerable, was Argentina, and his mission of serving the poor has never ceased. Biden continued, as Pope, he was a loving pastor and a challenging teacher. Reach out to different faiths. He commanded us to fight for peace, to protect our planet from climate crisis. He advocated for the voiceless church. He promoted and an end to poverty and suffering across the globe. Above all, he was a hope for everyone. He was the people's hope, a light of faith and love. Biden awarded the Pope with the Presidential Medal of Freedom in January. He did so far from a trip to meet the Pope at the Vatican that was cancelled due to wildfires in California. Biden is in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, after having spent his Easter there.
In other news, Pre- US President Donald Trump is commemorating the late Pope Francis, issuing a brief statement on social media following the pontiff's death. Rest in peace, Pope Francis. May God bless him and all who love him. Trump wrote in a brief message on Truth Social. Trump who met with the Pope at the Vatican in 2017. This is meant to appear later Monday at the annual White House Easter egg hunt. So,
So right now with this the death of Popo, it's been shocking. Political enemies united, even those who clashed with the Pope had extended their
yeah,
sincere condolences. So it's really a unifying force since then
yeah,
unity among world leaders. So Spirit's contribution is very much important. It's always been a core of the Catholic faith, which is peace. It's part of Christian faith. Well, before it was, but now unifying force of peace, love, and before mercy and looking back to it, it's very much at the loss that we have lost a great man, great priest, great, and the legacy endures even amid the passing of those who contributed. So yeah, so for you, Oski, what more insights do you have with the book?
so I have an insight that we could make it happen that on this in the action that as we know it that we could make it a remembrance and what are my memories the memories of Pope Francis before death. Pope Francis before death. So according to this before death, as we know it, according to this interaction that I could imagine we have it all. So, okay, so this is either wildly premature or you're about to hit me with a plot twist. So, as of right now, Pope Francis is dead. So, still doing this thing as the head of Catholic Church. So, so what are the Pope Francis reflections or memories about the life, past, or past experience? So, the core memories are reflective moments from Pope Francis. So, his time as a bouncer. So he once worked as a blah 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 nightclub bouncer about Buenos Aires before he joined the seminary. So he said it taught him how to talk to people and understand their struggles. Imagine getting turned away at the door by future Pope Francis said, "Sorry, my child, no sleeker." So the moment he chose the name Francis. Second, he was inspired by Saint Francis of Assisi, the OG minimalist and environmentalist, right after getting elected. So a Brazilian cardinal hugged him and said, "Don't forget the poor." That hit him hard, and he took it as a divine inspiration. Third, his lung surgery in his 20s. He had part of one lung removed due to an infection. It was a formative, humbling experiences, and he's often spoken how illness made him more empathetic. So the fourth, regrets and warnings. He's admitted to making some bad leadership calls early on, especially during Argentina's dirty war in the 1970s when he was head of the Jesuits here. He said he was too rigid and didn't understand the importance of real world engagement, growth art, chat. Fifth is the smell of a sheep. Okay, not a memory, but the main motto of his, he urges priests to smell like their sheep, meaning be with people not above them. That idea probably stems from his own time walking among the working class of Buenos Aires. So, and lastly, that time he was elected pope and didn't lose it. He was chill, like weirdly chill. He reportedly stayed calm and prayed and cracked a joke on the other cardinals. So, may God forgive you for what you've done. Iconic. If you're leaning towards something a bit more philosophical, like what would Pope Francis want to be remembered for, or what's been most meaningful for him, keep me with that, and I can take it to the deeper territory. Or if you're just messing with the phrasing to make it sound more dramatic, I respect the vibe. So, what we're actually aiming for, what with that question, Alexander?
What?
So, what you're actually aiming for with that question about this situation that it was a core memory from Pope Francis. Um, if you're not hearing Alexander's due to my cell phone. Anyways, we have an update from CNN, and
Okay.
there's an update.
I think I disconnected.
Yeah, so moving on. Political leaders who previously clashed with Francis expressed condolences for his death. Road leaders who previously clashed with Pope Francis over political issues, including immigration and the economy, have expressed their condolences following the pontiff's death. Francis' papacy was defined by his support for refugees and migrants. He called for solidarity with those fleeing war and persecution, urged the world to recognize their suffering, and insist they should be welcomed into societies. Hungary's Viktor Orban and Pope Francis had starkly differing views on the treatment of refugees. Today, Orban takes the pontiff for everything. The leader of Hungary met with Francis on multiple occasions. Before he became president, Javier Milei of Argentina, a Catholic majority country, also took issue with Pope Francis. Milei clashed with the pontiff over his country's economic policies, saying in 2022 that Francis is always on the side of evil. He later walked back that statement, and when he met with the pontiff, the two embraces each other. After his death, Milei said, having been able to know him in his kindness and wisdom was a true honor for me. In the
I think
U.S., Francis and U.S. President
I
Trans
I want to go back
clash.
sa yeah. Interrupt you there. I have some insights. Uh, Happening here locally. I remember one time when uh former president, no, the one being detained at The Hague today, former President Rodrigo Duterte. Remember he badmouthed the Pope, said ano, Pope umuwi
Yeah,
ano, umuwi ka na. Sorry for the language, but it was his statement. So I don't know his response now. Wala pa. I don't think the former president nor the Duterte family has added their response with the death of the Pope. But we seem to have a quick message from a quick statement from the current president Ferdinand Marcos. I, Given the history of the former president, though, I don't think not that shouldn't be get left unnoticed. We have a quick, quite a colorful history before when he badmouthed the Pope. So looking back to it, I I'm wondering what are the Dutertes say on the death of the Pope, given their colorful history. It's very much unique, right? Why do you think are the ano, why do you think should be there here in the local politics about Pope Francis? No? What is the impact on it, especially on that before the remarks years ago? What do you think about that, Oski? Uh, Oski?
yes. So I will be end this. Okay. So this has been a RBS Evening News for today. I'm Oski Walden.
Well, naputol tayo sa discussion na. But, given a solemn note,
Wala.
yeah, we
So this
given
is
a
a solemn
solemn,
note that
yeah.
it's
So, given
8:29 right
so,
now.
yeah.
So
Given a
our final word
solemn,
tonight from the Pope Francis. So this is a quote from Pope Francis on the last message of Easter. So I guess I read this song and I read this from the quote of Pope Francis. When the thought of death lies heavy on our hearts, when we feel the wounds of selfishness or violence, let us not lose our hearts. The light quietly shines forth. Even though we are in darkness. In a new beginning, however, impossible it might seem, can take us by surprise. Yan po ang ating quote bago siya namatay kanina lang.
Let us, aside from that, right now our message to our Filipino viewers across the world, this solemn day, let us remember the contributions of our very impactful individual. This is one of the most historic days in the history of our world. And we're just getting started in the year, only just April. We have find this very shocking to most, especially in this country, which is predominantly Filipino, Catholic nation. This is a very impactful day. Let us remember the sacrifices. Let us pray, offer our condolences, offer our consoles. This is a consequential day as well, and the future will never be the same without him. And this has been our special coverage. Oski, few words.
Yeah, so
Oski,
that is it for yeah, and that is a very special day that we had for us. May the rest in peace, Pope Francis, and keep it happen. And this has been a RBS Evening News for today. I'm Oski Walden.
this has been a continued coverage of the death of Pope Francis. We'd like to thank the viewers here for joining us here. I'm Alexander Carlson. As usual, you can tune in to RBS, RBSN, and log on to rbsnews.com. That's it for us. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Mabuhay.
Guide us with your
Grabe, it's been 1 hour.